So welcome, thank you so much everybody for coming. My name is Amy McCaw, I'm the author of Mina and the Undead, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by one of my fellow last year debut authors, but now no longer a debut, Andreina. So as you all know, Dead Lucky was published today. It is an absolutely wonderful book, and thank you, and we really appreciate you being here to celebrate it with us. So before we start and get talking about Andreina's fabulous book, just a couple of housekeeping things. You've probably, a lot of you already spotted the chat box to one side of the screen, whether it's this side or this side, where you can chat to each other and I will keep an eye on what you're saying. There's also an ask a question button at the bottom of the screen. So if you've got a question you'd like to ask Andreina, I will go through those at the end and choose some to ask. I think you can also upvote questions. So if there's one you really like, upvote it and we'll make sure that we get asked. Somebody's complimenting our t-shirts. I don't know whether it's my Buffy t-shirt or your Play Me t-shirt, Andreina, but I think we've both got good t-shirt game tonight. So thank you, Shelley. Okay, so I'll just tell you a little bit about Andreina and her books, and then I'll let Andreina talk for herself. So Andreina is the author, as I've mentioned, of 2 fabulous YA books. The first one, The Girl Who, came out last year, and it was an absolutely thrilling thriller. That's a bit hard to say. Which really captivated me with a very unusual story of a girl who'd been through some really difficult things and what she decided to do about them. And then we move on to Dead Lucky, and I will let Andreina talk for herself. So thank you so much for joining me, Andreina, tonight. I'm thrilled to be here. Can you tell us a little bit about your wonderful follow-up to The Girl Who? I'm going to show both of your gorgeous covers now. Can you tell us a little bit about Dead Lucky?
So yeah, basically Dead Lucky is about what happens when 4 people get very famous online, and then one of them is murdered on screen by a mysterious masked figure, and nobody knows who it is, and it emerges that that Zav, the murder victim, was sitting on a file full of dirty YouTuber secrets, or not, Play Me secrets rather. And people will do anything to stop it from getting out. And then my heroine, Maxine, is Zav's friend from back in school, also a successful influencer. And she's kind of caught up in it and has to figure out who is the killer before there's another victim.
I love that. When I first read the blurb, I just went, oh, so many things that I love. So you've got a murder mystery, you've got online influences, which I find deeply strange and fascinating all at the same time. So what was it that gave you the idea to write this book?
Ellie, my hero, or one of my heroines from The Girl Who, wants to be famous. She was just desperate to be famous, and I was trying to figure out how that would be. And then I ended up seeing a YouTuber on the beach in Sandbanks. So it was just this guy was just standing there, and people kept coming up to him, like kids, not like sort of under 12s were coming up to him, and he was like shaking their hands and doing selfies, and I didn't know who he was, and he was like having to explain to all these befuddled parents who the hell he was and why their kids were so excited to see him. And I was like, oh my goodness, that is what Ellie wants to do. And then the more I watched, the more I got interested in it. This idea that people are massively famous for essentially being themselves on screen, and the pressure that pushes on you when you're a teenager and you haven't actually figured out who you are yet, and you're doing that in real time. So, you know, and then also they're all expected to be role models, they're expected to be perfect, they're expected to kind of, you know, never diss their fans, never complain about their fans, you know, create fresh videos every day. So actually I'm quite sympathetic towards them. So that's where the original thing came from.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you can be really fascinated and quite envious that they've got millions of followers, they're making money with every person that views it, and yet it does come at quite a price, and I think you captured that really well with your characters. So on the subject of characters, I'm quite interested. I think that character seems to play a really big role in your books. Can you tell us a little bit about that? So do you think that character is important in thrillers, or is it more about the plot?
I think the character drives the plot. I mean, in a really good thriller, like some thrillers are so good and you can see how it was that person's personality. Like if another person had got into that situation, you know, they'd have gone to the police and it would be fine. Or, you know, So there's books like Erin Kelly's He Said, She Said, where, you know, the way the character responds to the situation, like it's about a girl who witnesses a rape and then gives evidence against it, and then what happens after that. And that's her personality is drives the whole thing forward, and hopefully, I mean, that's what I try and do as well with the stories that I write, is that, like, just get the characters right and they decide what they're going to do.
Yeah, you absolutely do. I think the way that you use different narrators is really clever, and I think it allows a real insight into the characters. And as you said, without saying too much, I think your characters, the character you've established for them, really informs what they do in the plot. And I think that's similar to influences, isn't it? So, as I said, I'm really fascinated by that world. I was wondering, how did you research it? Because obviously there is so much on there. How did you research it, and why did you decide to create your own platform?
Initially, I got really stressed because there's no way that anyone can know everything about YouTubers and TikTokers, and like, it's all changing while I was writing it. Like, TikTok wasn't really a thing when I started, and it existed, but it was called Musically, and it wasn't as popular. And then obviously lockdown, and it went whoosh. And that changed the style of what people were doing, and there was no way I could know what all influencers were. You know, but generally the rule of thumb is, by the time that someone in their 40s has heard of somebody, they're over. So yeah, I watched a lot. I picked a few people that I liked, that I wanted to watch. I picked a few people that were just fascinatingly strange, and like a lot of the American YouTubers. Like the ones that have been doing it for a while now, and they're all just celebrities, and with all the attached issues. And I watched quite a few of those, but I also read quite a few books about the business of YouTube. There's one called YouTubers by Chris Stoker Walker, which is really good. And I also talked to a couple of YouTubers, but not many. And the reason I ended up making my own platform was basically because YouTube and the other streaming platforms have come very far in terms of being able to take down bad content. There's a fellow 21 debut person who filmed herself unboxing her books on TikTok with Chinese kitchen knife, you know, like quite a machete style, not machete, like a chopper kind of knife. And TikTok wouldn't let her upload it because there was like
Really?
a Chinese style kitchen knife in it.
Being used to attack a box, terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she was quite outraged because, you know, she was saying this is just a normal kitchen knife.
Yeah, a lot of people are
so they've got
complimenting
very
that,
good at that.
actually.
I didn't want to get sued. I made up my own platform, and it was actually loads more fun doing that anyway.
Sorry, I think I just interrupted you at the end there. There's a little bit of delay. Somebody in the chat is saying that they love how you made your own platform, then you get to make the rules. Was that a useful thing as well, that you could decide how your platform would be used?
Oh yes, that's Sandy. Hi, Sandy. Yeah, it was. It meant I didn't have to agonise over exactly how everything worked. So, you know, there's a bit of talk about, you know, live versions rather than not live versions, and uploads, and I could just make it up. I could, like, yeah, you can live stream, yeah, you can upload videos, yeah, you can you know, get this third-party software to do X, Y, and Z, and I could just make it up, and it was fantastically freeing. And the bits I enjoyed most, I think, in the whole book was where I could just make things up that were a bit like reality, but not actually reality.
I think the thing I enjoyed the most with your books is how you start off thinking one thing and starting to figure out who the characters are and how they're going to fit, and why did you choose these narrators. And particularly in Dead Lucky, I think you slowly peel back the layers of who people really are. Is that something that you do consciously in your books? Because I think that is something that's come through both The Girl Who and Dead Lucky.
The Girl Who, the weird thing was that I started off writing it from Ellie's point of view, and Ellie is really not the main character. And then as soon as I started writing this other persona, which is Leah, which is my main character, The Girl Who, it sort of came to life. And there's something similar happened really with Dead Lucky. I really wanted to have like a flashback to when they were at school, because I figured, I'm writing for teens, and these people are all like 19 and live in their own flats and stuff, and I want a flashback to how they started out, and also just to build the roots of kind of their relationships and how they got on and everything. And then I just, as soon as I started writing Sam's character, I just really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed that character as well. I think Sam was probably one of my favourite characters, and the one that I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, which was great. So we've talked about the fact that character seems to be a really big thing in your books that you really focus on. Is there anything else? Now that you've written 2 books, do you think that there are any other patterns emerging where you think, yes, I'm going to be writing about this for a long time?
Definitely friendship. I don't really... I will write about romance one day, I promise, but I just constantly fascinated by how people figure out friendships, how they kind of gel together or pull apart or whatever. So I love writing about friendships, and I just keep having loads of ideas about mad stuff happening online. So, so I'm thinking there'll be a lot of that as well, a bit of sort of truth and lies about online and offline, being an influencer, being in the public eye. That seems to keep coming back to that stuff.
Do you think any of that comes from the fact that you have written things in the public eye, as in you're a freelancer as well as being an author? Do you think you've drawn on any of your experiences, or is it just something that's outside of your experience, so you are fascinated by it?
It kind of, that's a difficult one actually, because I was never one of those journalists that did first person stuff about myself. Okay. But I did, obviously, went to press dues, conferences, and so that sort of green room kind of stuff I've seen and I know about. I loved writing the scenes in the green room at Flamey when everybody's drinking caveman. So it was more, to be honest, the experience of being a journalist was more about learning how to step out of yourself. Because I interviewed real life people. It was never celebrity journalism. So I was interviewing people who reacted to situations in ways that I never would have. And it sort of made me realise how people get into these situations. It made me realise how you can never make up anything that's as weird as real life. So that's probably more fed into it than anything else.
Yeah, I think a lot of authors say that, don't they? That they put something in their book that actually is real, and that's the thing that everybody goes, no, it never could have happened, and you're like, yes, it did. I think it's good that we can draw on that, and you've obviously met lots of interesting people in your other job. So what is it? You started off, you were a journalist, and then you're now also an author. What moment was it that you made that transition?
I actually went into journalism to get experience and life experience and to prepare myself to be a writer, because I didn't quite feel ready when I left university. I knew I hadn't really lived enough to kind of talk about it, to write other people's emotions. So I went out into journalism as a way of spending time while I was getting ready to be a writer. So I always wanted to do this. But then I got a bit distracted in magazines.
And now you can do both, which is great.
Yeah, that's not tiring at all.
No, I was just thinking that. It's just, being 2 different people. And we've talked about this, Andreina and I. There's a lot of different facets, isn't there? Because you're writing a book and also doing a day job, you're freelancing. there's a lot of things to juggle. And now you have 2 books to juggle as well. So I was wondering, how does it feel? Obviously, last year when your book came out, we were in lockdown and things felt very grim on a national scale. But you'd had the amazing experience of being a debut author, and then you're now, is it sophomore author, people call it in the US?
It's American,
yeah, you have 2 books out anyway. Does it feel any different that you're no longer a debut, or is it just as exciting each time?
I think I'm more excited this time. I think last time, I hate to say this, I ruined it with worry.
Yeah.
I was so worried about what people would think, and, would anyone buy it? Had I accidentally caused offence? I was so worried about absolutely everything that I didn't let myself chill and enjoy it so much. And also because it was happening against this backdrop of madness of like lockdown, and that second lockdown was really hard for everyone. Nobody really felt like yay this time last year.
No.
So yeah, I think this year I'm actually having more fun. Also, it's kind of a fun book to promote because it's got all these, sort of funny influences and leopard print and pissenlit, and there's just lots of silly things to talk about. So I like it.
Yeah, I think although they both feel like your books, they are quite tonally different. Do you think that you are more inclined to write one or the other, or do you think the book itself informs that?
Sorry, can you say it again?
Sorry, I was just saying that they're quite tonally different, as in, although they've got lots of things in common, like the characterization, I think The Girl Who feels serious and it's rooted in a very traumatic experience one of the characters has, and then Dead Lucky, although it's got this sort of murder mystery aspect, it feels lighter and sort of poking fun at things as well as dealing with some really serious subjects. So I wondered, do you have a preference now which you prefer to write, or do you think that you could dip in and out of both?
I think I was saying this to Charlie yesterday. Hi, Charlie, she's here somewhere. But there's quiet books and loud books. And The Girl Who was a quiet book, and Dead Lucky is a loud book. The quiet book is, it's happening in a sort of close quarters to this family. It's slow burn, it's pressure, and then it all explodes. And then the loud book is like, yeah, there's a murder on the first page. And the whole of society is in chaos. And I really enjoy both. And I don't want to choose. So can I do both?
You don't have to. We want to keep reading all of it, so that's fine. I just wanted, because I think you do learn things as you go through. I think my second book, I've actually, in a way, I'm a little bit more nervous, because I think book 1, I didn't really think about the fact people would read it. So when it came out, I sort of had got zero expectations of that. Now I know people liked book 1. I'm like, oh no, what if they don't like book 2? So I think it's strange, isn't it, that at any point of the journey you can find a new piece or you can find new things to fret about. It's good that you've gone the other way and you're feeling more calm the second time around.
I didn't while I was writing it, if that helps. It was really
It does a little bit, actually. Yeah, I think there's a different voice in your head when you're writing the second book, isn't there? The first one you can take as long as you want. It might never get published, so but the second one, you've got a contract and you know that it's coming out on this set date and it will happen, and that adds pressure, doesn't it? Was it that for you? I think it's the pressure for me that got to me a little bit.
The first one is virtually no edits, because I had been doing that thing for 10 years, something like that. So, I'd layered it, every time I picked it up, I went up and edited the previous chapter. So the first quarter of the book was perfect. and this other one was just much more just chuck it all in and see what happens. And then I did a lot of the work on things like motivation and stuff in the second draft, when I'd had a chance to step back and look at it from a distance. In fact, I sent it to my editor, went for a run, because I did that in those days. I didn't have a puppy then. Went for a run, and on the run, I thought of the motivation. I thought all the motivation problems through, solved it all by the end of the run, and I'd already sent it to my editor.
Yeah, I tend to do that. You hit send and then you either have a revelation or you have this moment of absolute panic. Like, what have I done? I can't take it back. Gina in the chat is an author as well, and she said that she found the second book so much harder and less fun, the pressure. And it seems to be a really common thing, doesn't it? Second book syndrome. Well, on the subject of being panicked on second books, let's flip that and let's pick up your fantastic second book. Are you ready to read us a little extract? We'll have a break from the questions.
Okay.
We'll listen to Andreina and then we'll go back and ask a few more before we do a fun quiz. So everybody prepare yourselves for all your social media knowledge is going to come into play. I read Andreina's questions and realised I knew none of the answers, so I'm sure people will be more knowledgeable than me.
Yeah, I think it's more of a guessing thing than anything else. It's just fun.
Yeah, it definitely is. Okay, so we'll all sit back and enjoy for a minute and listen to you read, and then we will move on and do a few more questions.
Okay. By the time the video was taken down, 3 million people had watched Zav Bailey's murder. The post is an unusual one for Zav these days. No stunts, no laughing hangers-on, but it's still on brand for him. Every now and then he shares classic style intimate chats to camera, and they often get better views than some of his crazier ones. People like to get the feeling they're seeing the real Zav. He's sitting at the desk in his apartment. The shelves behind him are messy as ever, with piles of graphic novels, gadgets, game packages, bits of memorabilia jammed in tight together. Chaotic mess was always Zav's style, but over the years the disorder has become staged. The bobble-headed figure carelessly shoved front and centre is tied to a game he sponsors to promote, and the coffee mug emblazoned with the words Ed's Tears is nothing less than cruel. Zav is wearing a white t-shirt made by an edgy cult Korean brand. The logo on it is so small and discreet you'd have to know what you were looking for to see it, a dog whistle signal for a certain kind of hipster. His shoulders look broad in it, tanned biceps strain the fabric of the sleeves ever so slightly. Zav always had the balance just right between having a tight toned body and looking too ripped. His skin, as ever, is amazing, but the most striking thing about Zav is the aura of confidence about him, shining out brighter than his shirt. You might think it's the kind of self-assurance that comes with millions of viewers hanging on your every post, with sponsorship deals, celebrity link-ups and hot and cold Korean shirts on tap. But he's always been like this. He knows exactly who he is and where he should be, and the effect pulls people towards him like iron filings to a magnet. You see that fun, laid-back smile and you want it to shine on you, even when you know what he's really like. There's no messing around at the beginning of Zav's videos. He's talking fast, and we all know those 15 seconds of content are everything. As he talks, reeling off a brutal review, he's waving the case of another game. Okay, headline is this. It's bad, really bad. It's time we invented minor stars for games this catastrophically awful. What's the opposite of a star? Oh yes, a black hole. This piece of crap gets 5 black holes from me. Let's hope it gets sucked into one of them, never to return. As he throws the game over his shoulder, there's a sound behind him, a flicker of movement, and he looks up, mid-rant, a flash of confusion on his face. He leans back slightly. We can see the room behind him a little more. That's when we get our first glimpse of it, of the face. Oh God, that face would haunt us all, millions of us for months to come. A rubber mask, grotesque and swollen, mouth twisted in a raw red grin, the skin a slick yellowish-white colour, bulbous and knotted in some places and skull-like in others, a warped mask, horrifically unreal. We jump from the shot, but common sense tells us this is the setup, one of Zav's acolytes winding us all up again. We wonder what Zav would say next and prepare to be entertained, and true to form, Zav's reaction is a bit more calculated now. He's not as good an actor as he thinks he is. Oh God, he says. Oh God, no. The figure grabs him roughly, black-clad arms around his shoulders, gripping his jaw, pressing his head against its chest. Zav doesn't fight back, but a look of annoyance crosses his face. Hey, the hair! Zav doesn't see the knife, not until it's too late, and there's no time for him to react. The sound is bad on this part, and all we can hear is a grunt and a cry, then a kind of sigh. The figure stands, and for the first time you see the knife in its hand. A sharp kitchen knife, the kind that costs a fortune and goes through steak like butter. It's not a stage knife, it's sharp and shiny and slick with red. The figure leans forward until its disgusting figure leers into the entire shot, until you can almost see the glimmer of the screen reflected in the creature's eyes, deep set and almost completely hidden by the mask. There's a human being inside this monster. Then some animated text appears on the screen, the same style and font Zav always uses, but this time it's not a wisecrack or a link or a spawn alert. The words say, he deserved it, and the words say, this is real.
That is so good. While Andrew's getting sorted, no, it's fine. Oh, that honestly is like a lesson in how to start a book. That first line, I think the characterization, and I think if anybody gets to that point, everybody in the chat is saying dun dun dun, and boom. Yes, I think if anybody picked that up in a bookshop and read that chapter, they would not be able to put it down, and it just carries on. I think although your book's really character driven, the plot, especially of this one, I wasn't supposed to be reading much. I was supposed to be writing my book, and I ended up binge reading it over the space of a day. Like, shh, nobody talk to me. I'm reading this book. And I got to the end and went, oh, there's no more. That's it. And it's definitely the plot that did that, as well as the characters. So I was just wondering, how much plotting do you do before you write? And you mentioned about ironing some things out in edits. What does that process look like for you?
Oh God, I'm so bad. Like, I want to be a plotter, and I'm a pantser. Which, if you're not a writer, that means you fly by the seat of your pants and you just make it up as you go along. So yeah, I knew how it started. I knew about Maxine, and I knew about Sam, and I knew who the killer was, and that was about it. And it changed so many times. I had this whole denouement scene in the middle of the countryside at one point, which I realised halfway through the book was totally unsuitable for the tone of the book, and had to completely rejig it. But that was during the first draft. And yeah, so the first draft was basically the plot was hanging together, but there were just a few things needed slotting in, like a few clues and some character motivation and stuff like that. And that makes it sound super easy, but it wasn't.
Just a few things to slot in. There's no tears or like screaming at your screen.
Yeah.
Or you make it sound easy anyway. Yeah, I think I'm quite similar actually. I think that I want to plot. I get about a quarter of the way through plotting and just really want to write it. So I start writing, quickly write myself into a corner, and then have to go back and
that is exactly
do
what I do. I can't hold myself back. I'm like, I've got to start writing this now.
It's a constant to and fro, isn't it? I'll write a bit. Oh, I've got to plot it. Yeah, that seems not necessary. Yeah. Is Lena your agent?
She is, yeah.
I thought I recognised the name. Lena said there's a feeling of, I wasn't meant to spend this long reading right now. Is exactly how I feel when I pick up Andreina's books. I completely agree. Where did that 2 hours go? Gosh, yeah. Completely.
I also see Gavin in here. Hi, Gavin. And Gavin impresses me amazingly because he plans his writing scene by scene. And I just can't do
that. That's the dream, Gavin. Can you teach us how to do it, please? Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I'm sure Gavin's going to give us some advice any minute in the chat box. But for now, I'll ask you another question. So, I know that we're both really passionate about YA books and making as many people read YA as possible. So I was wondering, can you recommend any YA books to us that you've read recently that really impressed you? It could be by genre or by, just things that you've enjoyed. Have you got any top reads?
As Charlie
says we read all of it.
Yeah, there's this book called Mina and the Undead that's quite good.
Thank you. Lena's just said the same in the chat. Thank you so much, Lena.
Actually, I know there's a few Buffy fans in here and who might not know about Mina. So, people who I watched Buffy with back in the day. So definitely, if you're still in here, then this is a good read. I've also got a few here. I don't know if you can see my pile. I've got Harrow Lake, Kat Ellis's Harrow Lake, which is brilliant and scary. This Can Never Not Be Real, Sarah Milano, which is basically from 5 different points of view and changes perspective over 5 different points of view, like on the same page, but it makes sense and sometimes you're a bit confused, but mostly that's deliberate. But yeah, you just know where you are. It's really clever. It's really tightly done. And yeah, I could never have written that. So I'm always blown away by things I could never have written. Cynthia Murphy's new one, Win, Lose, Kill, Die, gave me nightmares. I mean, I know I'm a big wimpy pants, but I had such a weird dream after reading that. I was reading it till about 1 a.m.
I'm sure Cynthia will take that as an absolutely huge compliment.
She did. She was smiling. And I told her the next day. She was like, "I'm so happy." What others? I've also got Vincent Ralph Stop the Doors, which is really good because there's not enough like male perspectives in YA. I don't think, weirdly, because there's plenty of male perspective elsewhere. But yeah, it's a fantastic domestic kind of thriller with 2 points of view, one male, one female. Gosh, so many I've got. Got The World
Shall I
Between
jump
Us.
in with a couple, Andreina?
Hmm?
I'll jump in with a couple and see. I'll jump in with a couple of
Oh, yeah.
recommendations and see if you remember any more. So one I read last year, another UK YA author, was House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. I'm not very easily scared with books, and that book really messed with my head and unsettled me. It's a story of 3 sisters who go missing when they're younger and they reappear. And then when they get a little bit older, one of them goes missing again, and the 2 remaining sisters have to figure out what's happened to her. And it's got this incredible magical realism feel to it. It's terrifying. It surprises you, makes you question everything, and it's so good if you like the kind of books we're mentioning. I was going to mention Cynthia's, you pinched that from me. But I also really like Catherine Foxfield's books. I've got one of them up there, Good Girls Die First. She's also written It's Behind You, and her latest has just been announced, which I think is Tag You're Dead. And she also writes really gripping YA. They're sort of horror thrillers, I would say, that have some really scary tensions.
She's on my TBR.
Oh, she's brilliant. And all of her books have this feel of, is it supernatural? Is it real? Very mysterious and fun. Actually, it's similar in tone, I'd say, to Dead Lucky. If you're a fan of Dead Lucky, you'd probably really enjoy Catherine's books. So are there any others, Andreina, that you thought of, or should we move on?
I think you had to stop me and move through there. I've got so many.
Yeah, I know. It's there's so much, especially I think UK YA is going through a real time where there are so many books that need to get out there and need to be read. So I really appreciate what you're doing, Andreina. You wrote an article recently, The Bookseller, about your love of YA and how you feel more people should read it. So can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write the article? And then as an add-on, what it's like being a freelancer? Because I'm quite fascinated by the whole thing.
I was actually really chuffed about that because it's not very often you get a chance to write about books. There's obviously you can blog about books, but to get on someone else's platform writing about books is quite tricky, really. Especially the bookseller. I mean, I've always wanted to write for the bookseller, and I basically just was talking to Frankie, who is the publicity person at Atom Books, and I said, I've got this idea. I don't think the bookseller will go for it because it's the bookseller, but where else should I pitch it? And she went, oh no, go for the bookseller, and it happened. So it just goes to show you shouldn't really put yourself down and rule things out before you've tried them. And yeah, I got to speak up for YA and say how brilliant it is and how inventive and how it's not just about Twilight and dystopia. Sorry, I'm actually trying to think of Hunger Games and I couldn't think of the name of the book. Everyone, adults, basically non-YA fans, know about Hunger Games, they know about Twilight, and they haven't really got any other memos since then. So it was nice to kind of tell them, hey, there's these other books around too.
I think there's a thing, isn't there, with YA, that if you're reading it and you're an adult, it's somehow inferior. Some people think that you should be reading adult books, but actually, I think the YA books I've read recently, they are so tightly plotted because there's not a word to spare. You've probably got 300 pages if you're writing a thriller max. You've got to be so tight in your plotting and your characterization. And I just think that YA authors are writing some of the best stuff that's out there. I probably would say that being one of them. But yeah, I do really, when I saw that article, I cheered. I do really feel strongly about it. I think that more adults should read it. I think a lot of young adults do read, but I'm hoping that more will, and that we can tear them away from screens and things and get lots of people reading. So thank you, Andreina, for helping us to get in that direction. And on the subject of screens, do you think it might be time for a quiz, Andreina?
Okay. Is anyone ready for a quiz?
Yay!
Please
So
say
I'll
yes.
explain a little bit, and then yeah, I'm excited about the quiz, even though I would get 0 if I was doing it. I'm sure other people will be really good at guessing if they don't know. So we've got 7 questions, and we have got a fantastic prize of 2 copies of Andreina's book. So 2 lucky people can win a copy of Dead Lucky, which only came out today. And we are going to get you to put the answers in the chat, and the first person to answer, I'm going to write their name down. First person with the correct answer gets a point on my sheet. And at the end, the 2 people who've got the most right answers first will be the winners. But if there is more than 2 people, then we're going to do a tiebreaker. And Andreina will read last question, and the first person to answer it correctly will be the winner. So, answers in the chat box. You need to be as quick as you can at typing. I know, Colette, it is so tense. They are ABC answers, so we will accept ABC. I'm going to really pay attention and make sure that I don't mess this up. So, Andreina, I'm going to hand over to you for question 1, the excitement. And I'm going to really concentrate on that.
Question 1. Which YouTuber has not been on Strictly? A. Joe Sugg, B. KSI, and C. Saffron Barker.
Ooh, Colette, that was so quick. Oh my gosh. And that was the correct answer. So, Colette, you are in the lead. Oh my goodness. And well done, everybody else. Lots of B's, a couple of C's. I would have put, I don't know, because I don't know. It would have been just a guess. 33% chance. Well done. Colette's a massive Strictly fan, so already in the lead. Question 2.
Okay. Question 2. Which parenting influencer, brackets mummy blogger, disappeared offline last year after it emerged she'd been using fake accounts to post negative comments about other influencers, including her own husband? Was it
That's real. That's a real thing that happened.
Yeah. This is a rich field, my friends. This is a rich field. Is it A, Clemmy Hooper, mother of daughters, B, Vicky Broadbent, honest mum, or C, Jo Middleton, slummy single mummy?
Ooh, okay, I have a winner. I'm not going to say who they are this time, just for a bit of suspense. We do have somebody got the correct answer very quickly.
Yeah.
The correct answer was A, Clemmy Hooper for that one, mother of daughters. Yep. This is like you're writing the most outlandish fiction, Andreina, and yet it's real. I can't believe it.
It's all flipping true.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Okay, let's keep going.
More general one next. Which one of these handles is not the username of a famous YouTuber? A, Amazing Phil, B, Drop Dead Fred, C, Miranda Sings.
Okay.
People do know their stuff.
Yeah, I'm impressed with that one. That was very, very quick by one person. I did know this one, actually. I realised the answer is Drop Dead Fred because it's one of my favourite films. I love it.
I love Drop Dead Fred.
That was brilliant. Okay. Question 4.
Question 4. Why did TikTokers Bryce Hall and Blake Gray have their electricity cut off last year? Was it A, being too poor to pay the bills? Was it B, throwing illegal parties during lockdown? Or was it C, using too much power?
Oh, okay.
Oh, did everyone hear the question?
Yeah, somebody said we frozen. Have we unfrozen? Can somebody confirm in the box if we're still okay? Can you see us all right?
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, we're unfrozen. Great. Okay, I have names, I have people. Let's continue. We've got one person who's storming slightly into the lead so far. It could be anybody else's game for the second book.
Okay, so question 5. How many TikTokers are, how many TikTok users are there worldwide? A, 80 million, B, 750 million, or C, 1 billion?
Ooh, okay. I got somebody.
6. Which YouTuber was accused of holding blackmail material over fellow content creators last year? which I have to point out was after I started writing about the burn files in Dead Lucky.
That is shocking. Oh my gosh.
Was it A, Shane Dawson? Was it B, Tiana from Toys and Me? Or was it C, Giovanna Fletcher?
Okay.
Interesting. Question 7. Which American YouTuber planned to fake his own girlfriend's death to get more views?
Not cool. Really not cool.
Was it A, Connor Franta, B, Jason Ethier, or C, Davey Wavy?
Ooh. People watching this are very knowledgeable. Now, I'm just going to take a moment to tell you the scores, but I think we have 2 winners.
I think there's a bit of a time lag, actually, on the answers, because Lena just answered the question 6.
Okay. In that case, I may have got this completely wrong, but in any case, there's going to be 2
Just
people.
a bit of fun. It's fine.
2 people who have got copies of the book. So the first person, Colette, was extremely quick and extremely accurate. So congratulations, Colette. You have won a copy of Dead Lucky. And the second person was Lisa McGarry. So well done, you two. You have both got copies of Dead Lucky. Andreina, I don't know, will they be signed, Andreina? Will they be made personalized?
If they want to be, then yes.
Congratulations, you two.
Brilliant.
We will get that sorted. We do
just
have your
in case
contact
people
details,
wanted to know, like the guys who got their power cut off, it was because...
Oh yeah, sorry, did I jump in before that? Sorry, I got carried away.
Oh no, I just thought people might want to know the answers.
Yeah, it's fine.
First one you said was KSI, which was right. The second one, Clemmy Hooper, was the one who took the gossip site Tattle Life under the pseudonym Alice in Wanderlust and slagged off fellow bloggers and then called her own husband a Class A twat.
Oh.
Yes, Drop Dead Fred was not the hand of a YouTuber. Question 4, why did Bryce Horn and Blake Gray get their electricity cut off? They threw massive parties at their LA mansion during lockdown, which included loud music, hundreds of guests, and on one occasion gunshots. Eventually, the city authorities disconnected their power in an attempt to stop the parties. Insert your own political joke here.
I was just thinking the exact same thing. It's almost too easy. I won't say it.
And then YouTube has 2 billion members worldwide, and the blackmail was Shane Dawson. Basically, fellow YouTuber Tatty Westbrook said that Dawson and Jeffree Star blackmailed her into denouncing another influencer on camera, and that they had a file on other people in the industry too. And I'm obliged to point out here that Dawson denies the allegations, and that the other 2 lovely people in the multiple choice are nice and have never blackmailed anyone.
Oh my
and
gosh.
then the guy who faked his girlfriend's death was Jason Ethier, and he filmed himself announcing the death, posted a video of himself attending a fake memorial, and then her parents got upset and made him take the videos down. And then one morning, shortly afterwards, he woke up to find his girlfriend and all her things were gone. She'd ghosted him.
Poor guy, you know. You try to fake your girlfriend's death and she doesn't leave you. How shocking. I can't believe that they were all real. Thank you, Andreina, for opening my eyes to that.
And actually, yeah, I was, as I was writing it, I kept thinking, please don't anyone get killed on camera by a mass murderer by the time I come out, because I'll have to withdraw it, and I've worked so hard.
Luckily, as you said, you know, these things, touch wood, have not happened in your life. You've just taken it a step further, so that's great. Exactly what fiction needs to do, keep pushing the boundaries. So we've got time for me to ask one more question, and then I'm going to hand over to audience questions. So if you've got something that you would like to ask Andreina, now is the time to get it into the Ask the Question box. I've just got one more thing that I want to know, which is what are you working on now?
Good question.
Or are you having a well-earned break? Also an acceptable answer.
I'm working on basically another book, and sort of more of a quiet one, but still with lots of suspense and psychological thrill and everything. I can't really I don't want to talk about it because I never want to talk about stuff until I know it's happening. But I also have like this brilliant idea that I really want to work on about trolls. I really want to write about trolls. Internet ones, not ones with the hair.
At first, I did go to the fluffy-headed trolls, and then realised you probably didn't mean that. And I kind of want to read both books, to be honest. You writing about little fluffy 90s trolls and just add them to your list and get onto that in order.
Yeah, okay. There might be some licensing issues, but
it could be. You could call them something else, Okay, so I'm going to the audience questions, and the first one has been upvoted, and it's a question from Colette. Was Dead Lucky always titled Dead Lucky from when you started writing it, or did it have a different title as work in progress? If so, what was it? Ooh, good question.
Started off being called The Lucky Ones, and then Liz Lawson wrote a really good book called The Lucky Ones that came out the year before. Which I'm grateful to that because I went to read it and I really enjoyed it, and and it was a much better title for her book than my book. So and then for a while it was called See How We Play because I thought it sounded really sinister and nobody else agreed with me. So then I thought of Dead Lucky, and everyone was like, yup, that's the one.
Oh, it's nice to get that feeling, isn't it? My book was originally called Empire of the Dead, which is the name of a creepy bar in the book. And my agent said she didn't like it. It sounded too much like an adult fantasy book. And I was like, what does she know? And then an adult fantasy book called Empire of the Vampires came out. And I was like, yeah, okay, she has a point there. So I think these people do know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay, next audience question. I'm just going to bring up. Thank you. That was a really good question. I'm going to save that for future events to ask people. Where can people get your T-shirt, Andreina?
I just had it made because I was sad.
Oh, cool. Maybe you should sell them. There's interest. It's really cool. Did you design the logo?
No, they designed the logo at Atom. I think I don't know if it was Casey. Casey was here. Casey's a hashtag merch. Get on it, Casey.
Casey. I was just thinking that, but that sounds like a moneymaker there.
Yeah. I wanted to have a merch round in the YouTuber quiz actually, but everyone's merch was so boring. I couldn't find anything hideous enough to share.
So somebody whose name has not popped up said that they loved the girl who. Did you find it? Oh, it's Ben. His name's popped up now. Did you find it easier or harder to write the second book when you already had one published?
I found it really flipping hard to write Dead Lucky, but it's because I really pushed myself out of my comfort zone. I've never written a whodunit before, and to have the deadline there is a really weird double thing where you're incentivized because you know that your publisher thinks you can do it, so therefore you have to do it. But on the other hand, you're sort of freaking out because you've got a deadline and you have to write it in 6 months, and you can't just delicately work on it for years and years and wear it down like a stone. You have to just bash the thing out and then edit it. So Dead Lucky was really hard, but I think it was more because it was really twisty and it was a whodunit and it was new to me.
Good answer. Right, so let's have a look. And another really good question. Thank you, Ben. So, let's see who else we've got. Well, this is another great question. Thank you. I think this is another one from Colette that's been upvoted. How did you find plotting or writing the technological aspect of the book? For example, the crime being committed live on screen and all the digital evidence.
Yeah, that was a tricky one. I think everyone who writes murder mysteries or adventures set in the present day has the mobile phone problem. And I think I remember a couple of adult crime fiction authors saying this. It's everyone's. There's always you're out of signal, or oh no, damn, no signal. Oh, my battery's gone.
I read one recently which was dropped it in the snow, and I was like, yes, that's a good answer. Dropped it in the snow.
Yeah, well, so with this one we had basically there was everyone's looking for these burn files. The killer has obviously searched everywhere in Zav's flat where the murder took place, and hasn't found anything. The police haven't found anything. So, where the hell was I going to put these burn files? So that was fun, but I think the solution I came up with was actually quite a fun one, but I hope.
It was.
There is a phrase of technical explanation involved in that reveal, but I literally just said to my husband, if they'd done this thing, how would you explain it in techie terms? And then I just transcribed it and made Ed say it.
So your husband solved your mystery. That is good to know. Mine helps me as well with various plotting things. Okay, I'm just going to ask one more question, and then we have got a little bit of time for something fun just at the end. So, okay, Shelley has asked, how many hours of YouTube did you have to watch to get into the characters' heads?
Too many. I think the funny thing about YouTube is that I've got huge respect for these people and what they do, but I'm much more interested in what they're not saying than what they're actually saying. So, I was desperate to try and find out, the pressure that people were under and what life is like for them, and, just practical things like, do they have an assistant? And you don't get... They don't reveal that sort of thing because they're all just look at me, I'm so cookie. And so actually, I did watch a lot of YouTube, but I didn't watch as many hours as you'd probably think because I was more interested in what they weren't saying.
It's a very with a few
My
exceptions.
sister's saying, "Where is the wine? Where is the wine?"
We'll get to the wine in a minute. Don't worry. I think it's interesting, isn't it? And that's where your book perfectly deals with the things that people don't see on screen and the polished persona that they create. I've actually remembered there's one more question I wanted to ask you on that subject, so just a fun one to finish with. I was thinking, if you were a social media figure who had millions of followers, what would be your unique selling point? All of your characters had something quirky that set them apart. What would it be for you?
You know what? I don't know, and that's the big question, because ever since I've been a writer and I've had to occupy public space, as in talking about my books, going on Instagram and having a brand. I just don't know what defines me. And I talked about this with Andy, who was here earlier. I don't think he's still here. AJ West, who did a bit of Instagram tutorials and stuff with me. And he's specializes in talking to people and saying, yeah, this is your thing, this is your thing, this is your thing. It was yeah, your thing is that you're interested in everything and you're a bit strange and kooky. And I'm oh, that's not helpful. So your thing is eclectic. Everyone else is okay, your thing is glamour, your thing is history, your thing is ghosts or whatever. And my thing is so
maybe your thing is just being real. That's a good thing to be you're not obviously curating the vision of you that's out there. You just are being you, the quirky, wonderful person that you are.
Yeah, that's what I think. Well, the thing is, you just have to do your thing, and some things stick and some don't. And like if people like you doing one thing, you bring them more of it. So it's the same with if people like Dead Lucky, then there'll be more books like Dead Lucky, hopefully.
There will be, I'm sure. And on that note of there being more books like Dead Lucky, yes, please, we are going to end on a little toast. So, Andreina, do you have something that you would like to toast with and a toast that you would like to give?
I have this. It is the peas on leaf. So it's basically, if you haven't read Dead Lucky, which most people haven't, I had to invent like a trendy new drink, or a drink that was fashionable. And I had this disgusting thing on my shelf for ages. Sorry, Mum, but it is. And I've had this on my shelf for years. And I said I would toast in peas on leaf when this book came out. Oh. And it's been on my shelf for years. It's got floaty bits on it. It's gone slightly cloudy.
Nice. While you're pouring that, I'm going to show this glass. I feel like this glass is my brand. I'm drinking from a Halloween glass, and I'm drinking something that looks like blood, which is actually cherry juice. So, if you want to know what my brand
is, really nice, actually.
I always end up drinking weird stuff. I need something to drink when I'm doing events, and it always ends up looking gross. So sorry about that. Okay, so do you have anything you'd like to say, Andreina, for us to raise our glasses? Cheers. Oh, cheers, everyone. The face says it all, really. Is it not? Or is it exactly what you thought it would be?
Actually, not as disgusting as I was expecting it to be after being on my shelf for years and having floaty bits of it. I'm not entirely sure I'm going to drink all of it. But
maybe the years improved it as it aged like a fine wine.
Yeah, well, so my mum bought it. It's basically dandelion wine, and the whole kind of joke of it is, you know how hipsters like to adopt things that have been around for centuries and pretend they're really new and cool. So I just picked this as a drink that was, already out there, and it's a French peasant drink. And that they made it into this, it drink of the season. I have to say, I don't think you could have a cocktail made with this.
Well, you can invent whatever you want. You wrote the book.
Yum. Thanks, Mum.
Right, and on that note of drinking vile things, so Colette is asking, and Lisa, I believe we have your information from Crowdcast, but if you want to get in touch with me, I'm Why Under My Skin on Twitter and Instagram, just to send me details to make sure that I do have them. In case anyone's wondering why I'm using this platform, I thought I'd mention before we go, I'm on the Northern YA Lit Fest Crowdcast, which is something that my publisher runs, UCLAM, and I want everybody to look out for it because it's a fantastic festival celebrating YA, as Andreina and I do. It's Northern as well, which I am, so doubly appreciated. And it happens every year, so stay tuned and look out on social media. There'll be announcements about it soon. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We do appreciate all the chat, all the support. Thank you, Andreina, for asking me to do this. I knew I'd have a wonderful time talking to you. I absolutely adore your books and your company, and I hope that at some point we get to do an event in real life together after all this virtual chat that we've done.
Definitely. And thank you so much for hosting. You've been so brilliant. Thank you. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming. It's amazing.
You're no longer a debut.
Everyone breathing.
I know. Well, maybe for book 3 we can do this again, and I will chair in real life, and I'm sure Lena will help us to make that happen. So I think we'll end there. Thank you so much, everybody. And yes, as I said, you can get in touch with me on social media, people who won the prize. But if you want to chat about YA, feel free to find me and Andreina. And thank you again, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.